Hey, so in this video, I'm going to share with you how I was able to save about $12,000 in the past 6 months. And I understand this might not seem like a lot of money to some people, but considering that the average millennial invests about 7.5% of their total income, I like to think that this is something of a step in the right direction. So follow along in this video. I'm going to share some tips and tricks and some strategies that I used to save more money, because I understand it can be very difficult to actually save money. The process of it, thinking about it, can be easy, but actually doing it and seeing that money in your account piling up can be much more difficult. Easier said than done. So let's get into this video. I talk a lot about personal finance on this channel. We help people build wealth, create financial freedom, and make more money so that they can be happier or just have more freedom and the ability to spend money how they want to spend it. So let's get into this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel though. All right, so let's get started. Now, there's really three first initial things that we need to do before we even consider saving money. And the first one is we need to set these overall kind of broad goals to understand where we want to be 12 months from now, 5 years from now, and 20 years from now. Just general ideas of do you want to be a multimillionaire, or maybe you just want to have enough money to pay for family vacations. You just want to have a nice cushion of cash or investments saved up so that you're not struggling to pay your bills. So decide where you want to stand there. Do you want to be a billionaire? Do you want to be Warren Buffett? Or do you want to not set goals as high? Because it's important to know that so that you can kind of plan for the future and know how serious you have to be about saving money in order to reach those goals. Now, the second step is really, really crucial to actually achieving financial success and being able to save money effectively, and that is by creating a very simple personal budget, a monthly budget. I have a free budget template down in the description if you're interested in using it. It's on Google Drive, or you could just create your own on something like Microsoft Excel. Or you could go old school, get out a pen and a paper and just start creating a budget. Write down all of your monthly expenses and your total income on a monthly basis. And that way you can see where the money's coming in and where it's going out. If you're not measuring and calculating your cash inflows and outflows, you're going to have a lot of issues actually trying to save money if you don't know what's going on and you don't know where that money's going. You don't know how much money you're spending on food and how much you're spending on all these other various expenses in our life. It can really pile up and really get ahead of you. So you want to get ahead of this and create a budget. And it's a pretty simple step, but it's something that so many people just neglect and they don't do because they just are kind of lazy or they just don't feel like they need to do it. But I'm telling you, if you're trying to save the most amount of money, this is how I went from saving almost nothing to being able to save a lot more money, was by using a budget. Now, the third step along here is to create more specific goals. So you had those initial goals of where you want to stand financially from years from now, but then you want to set these secondary goals, the ones that are more short term, where you can say, you know what, looking at my budget that I just calculated right here, I want to be able to take this and be able to save $500 a month, or maybe $100 a month, whatever you can afford, maybe $1,000 a month, and maybe $10,000 a month. It depends on your income, and that's totally understandable. So be realistic with yourself. Maybe start with small amounts, and then maybe expand that as you go on, as you get more experienced with budgeting and making smarter financial decisions. But find out where you can be for that budget, for setting those monthly savings goals and those yearly savings goals. Now, there's really 5 different, what I would say, essential needs of people that are very important to address. And we're going to dig into each one of those 5. And the first one is food, and then we have shelter, then we have transportation, clothing, and health. Those are really the 5, and we're going to dig into all 5 of those in just a minute here. But really one of the biggest keys to actually saving money for myself, regardless of anything else, any other ideas that people might have mentioned in the past, the one that was the most effective for me was by really implementing this super simple but so effective strategy, and it was by setting up automatic withdrawals with my bank. So look, what I have set up now is I have money flowing into one primary account, but I don't really use this account too much. It's sort of like a shell account, because after this money comes in, my income comes into this one account, and then it gets distributed through automatic withdrawals to various other accounts. So automatically 30% of my income goes directly into investments and savings accounts. So 30% gets thrown into there. Now I'm left with 70% to then use for the cost of living, to pay for my rent, to pay for my food, to pay for health expenses, to pay for any other expenses you might have. That's what that other 70% is. And you can decide this for yourself if you want to set this. Maybe you want to automatically withdraw 10% or 20% or more, whatever you can personally afford out of your budget that you already calculated previously. Then you can decide how much you're able to do. But look, I'm telling you, this is incredibly important to do, because with these automatic withdrawals, you want to set this up on the day that you get your paycheck. So the day that money gets put into your account, you have automatically withdrawn 30% of that, or whatever percentage that you are able or capable of doing. Then automatically withdrawals gets put into savings accounts or investment accounts, IRAs, whatever your heart might desire to put into something, and then you're left with a certain percentage to then live off of. And I don't want to say trick yourself into thinking that you have a certain income, but the way that I like to do it is I then say, you know what, I'm not making X amount of dollars, I'm only making 70% of that. And I tell myself, look, I have to live off of this and disregard that other 30%. It's a great way to really save money, and it's hard to go wrong with it in a lot of cases by using this strategy. So there's really 5 different needs that are pretty essential for most humans. Now, within these 5 needs, there's ways to cut back on each of these categories, and we're going to dig into these. The first one is food. This is one of my favorite ones to cut back on, and the reason for this is because food is one of the most depreciating assets you could ever imagine. I mean, if you spend $20 on a meal, you eat the meal, now there's nothing on your plate and there's no value left over. You basically could have just eaten that $20 bill, because that's the effect that it has on your wallet. So cutting back on food costs can be really effective. There's various ways to do this. Stop eating out as much, make your own food, and also consider buying products that are not branded but more so store brand. Products can save you $50 a month, $100 a month, or more, depending on how much you're spending at the moment on food. But I love cutting back on food without depriving yourself of nutrients. Make sure you're getting good food in your body, and that is very important. Now, the next one is with shelter. The cost of shelter is difficult to avoid that one. One of the best ways to cut your cost of your apartment or your house in half is to get a roommate, or consider renting out a room in your home through something like Airbnb to cut the cost of living for yourself literally in half. Now, there's also some other ways you can go about this. If you're not interested in getting a roommate, or you already have a roommate, you could consider cutting some utility costs, for example, Wi-Fi or electrical. There's ways to actually cut these costs. And so most people think that there's only one electrical provider or one Wi-Fi provider, when really you could look into various companies that are offering similar products and shop around a little bit more. And just because you've been using the same provider for the past 10 years doesn't mean that you shouldn't look into getting a different one, because what happens, and this happens with other utilities as well. So for example, waste management, trash companies, for example, will jack up the price over time without people really realizing, until you look and you say, wait a minute, this bill is 3 times higher than your competition. So you switch to the competition. So make sure that you're on top of that, switching to various different providers for various utilities to get the most effective use of your money. Number 3 is transportation. Now, this is one that is very difficult to avoid as well, but the Bureau of Labor Statistics estimates that the average cost of operating and owning a vehicle is close to about $9,000 per year. I'll leave a link to that down below, because I was kind of taken aback when I read that at first. But the cost of owning and operating a vehicle is very expensive, especially if you're racking up a lot of miles on it. People don't always consider this. Look, you're paying for auto insurance, you're paying for the vehicle expenses, you're paying for gas, you're paying for all these different issues that might pop up with the vehicle. You need new tires, you need to get it inspected, you need to get a new alternator, and it runs up a lot of money. So look, if you live in an urban or even a suburban area where there's some type of public transportation, or even Uber sometimes, you might want to consider thinking whether or not it's actually worth it for you to own a vehicle and how much you're using that vehicle versus something like public transportation. Run those numbers. I highly suggest that, because cars are a money pit. They're difficult to avoid, especially if you're in rural areas like myself. It's difficult to not have a vehicle. I did it for a while, but eventually I had to end up getting a vehicle. But look, if you can cut back those, it's going to help you so much. Now, there's 2 more here that are very essential. Clothing. This is one that's very easy to cut back on. The best way to cut back on the cost of clothing, what I found, is to unsubscribe from all these different emails from clothing providers that are giving you sales and discounts. And look, email marketers are paid to do something that they're very good at and they're very effective at it. That's why they're still making money and they're still sending these emails, because they're effective. Look, when you're getting those emails where it says 40% off sale of this clothing store, people end up buying clothes. So what I do, I unsubscribed from all of those different email providers and emails that I was getting, and that way I wasn't tempted to go out and buy something because I got an email about a special sale on something that I didn't really need or want but ended up buying. So unsubscribe from those emails. And if you're really pinching pennies, if you're really in kind of an area where you need to start saving more money, you're on a tight budget, I would consider going to something like a thrift store or Goodwill or Salvation Army if you need to go to that. There's no shame in that. Look, I've done it in the past, and I think it's actually really effective and helpful to society, because I feel as though people are very wasteful. They buy things and they just throw them in the trash and they end up in the landfill. But with something like thrift stores, you're able to recycle clothing and it's much less expensive as well. So consider that as well if you're in a tight budget. If not, then maybe you don't have to worry about that. But the one other on this list is health, and health is incredibly important. The best way to cut back on this is to make sure you're treating your body correctly. Health is one of the most important things in our life, but people pay a lot of medical bills because they have medical problems because they're not eating healthy and they're putting terrible foods, toxins into their body, and they're not working out, they're not exercising, and it's costing them a lot of money. Maybe not now, but trust me, 20 years from now, if you're treating your body like crap right now, 20 years from now, you're going to have plenty of medical problems. So make sure you address that and think about that for the future. Just be good to your body, be nice to your body, because without your body, you probably wouldn't be alive. No, you definitely wouldn't be alive. All right, so that is this video. Thanks for watching. Hopefully I was able to give you some different ideas for saving some money. This is what I personally did. I know some people are going to disagree with this, but this is just what I did. I'm just sharing it with everybody here. So thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed, and I will see you next time.